This is Brother Medina for Tuesday Seventh-day Adventist, and please let us start with a word of prayer. Loving Father, please be with us as we enter into our discourse. Bless everyone listening and help them to understand the true meaning of rights and freedoms. In Jesus' holy name we pray with thanksgiving unto Thee. Amen. Well, our study today is, what is a republic? What is a republic? And because Republic Day is coming up very soon in this country, we want to educate people furthermore as to just what a republic is. And to do this, we are going to have two programs, this program and another program following this one, which means the next Sunday we are going to have another program also further explaining what is a republic. Now, usually people think of a republic as a democracy. And they think that when they say a democracy, that's the end all of government. However, a republic is not a democracy, my dear people, although democracy is a political method within a republic. Democracy is a method of putting a government into political power. And this may or may not be how the government is run. So you see, while they may use democracy to put a government into political office, they may not use democracy as a means of following all their policies. The facts are, while the will of the majority may put a government into office, the government's policies may not be what the majority wants. This always leaves out also a minority. But this is a democracy and how it works. It deals with the will of the majority, but it always leaves out a minority. So therefore, a democracy cannot be a republic. Yes, my dear people. Furthermore, a republic, however, is not about how a government is put into political power. That's not what a republic is about. It is not about the method of putting a government into political power. It is about how a government is run according to principles. A republic is a governance. Now listen very carefully. A republic is a governance that respects and protects the rights and freedoms of all citizens, both majorities and minorities. So when you speak about a republic, you are speaking about a method of governance in a country. And that method of governance must show respect and must also protect the rights and freedoms of all. That includes minorities as well as majorities. A republic is a governance that holds our rights and our freedoms to be inalienable and inviolable. Get these two words clear. A republic must hold the rights and freedoms of all citizens as inalienable and inviolable. Yes, my dear people, inalienable rights and freedoms in a republic means that these rights and freedoms are identified and acknowledged as coming from God and not from man, not from a legislative body, not from law, and not from the will of the majority. The rights and freedoms of man must be identified as coming from God. Yes, my dear people. And when it comes to inviolable, the inviolableness of rights and freedoms in a republic means that those rights and freedoms are not to be violated by government. So that government in political office must not violate by any policies the rights and freedoms of their citizens. And that's why you see those rights and freedoms are inviolable. Therefore, when you are celebrating a republic, to celebrate a republic, you are therefore celebrating the fact that your rights and freedoms come from God. Yes, my dear people. So that when you say, I am celebrating a republic by this Republic Day, as you use this Republic Day to celebrate a republic, what you are supposed to be celebrating is the fact that your rights and freedoms come from God and are therefore inalienable outside of man and therefore inviolable and not to be violated. That's what you are supposed to celebrate. Some people think that a republic means that you do not have a king or a queen as your head, and also that as a country you now run your own affairs. So they usually say, well, when you hear that people are asked, what is a republic? They say, well, it means we don't have a queen or a king as the head of state. We run our own affairs. That's what they usually say. However, my dear people, this statement is not entirely true and is rather an extremely superficial way of looking at what is a republic. And that's the point about that statement. You see, kings in pre-republican times were absolute rulers who made laws and controlled the rights and freedoms of their subjects. That's how it was in pre-republican times. Because of this, people were subject to abuse, to torture, and to executions by the whims and fancies of those kings, or by the influence of religious despots influencing those kings. So when those religious despots would influence those kings would in those days kill people or murder people for religious causes to please the church. And that's how it was in those days. There was no recognition of religious liberty. There was no recognition of the right to life. There was no recognition of the right to private property under these absolute monarchs. This is how it was in those pre-republican times. Yes, my dear people. So, when a republic removes the king as a political head with powers, it recognizes that rights and freedoms do not come from the king, but they come from God only, and therefore they must not be violated. And this is what a republic recognized. Now, instead, the law or constitution of the country that is a republic was the new authority. The law was now the new authority. The people were ruled now by law and not by a king. Thus, the importance of the removal of the king, meant that the rights and freedoms of man came from God and thus must not be violated. So, a republic celebrates the immutable and eternal fact that the rights and freedoms of man are all God endowed. And that is what it is all about. So if you say, what is a republic? You mean, a republic means a system of governance, a political philosophy in a country about a system of governance. And the system of governance states that your rights and your freedoms are inalienable. They come from God and not from man, and therefore they are inviolable. They must not be violated by government. And therefore, when you celebrate Republic Day, what you are celebrating is the fact that your rights and freedoms come from God. This quotation explains a little more about what we were just talking about. This was written by John Quincy Adams. Here is what it tells us, I quote, "The War of the American Revolution taught monarchs and statesmen a great moral lesson, universal in its application and valuable beyond estimate. It taught them to respect the inalienable rights of the governed and to regard political freedom as the firmest pillar of the throne." End of quote. And so John Quincy Adams clearly shows us what a republic did to what we call kingship, or the divine rights of kings. It clearly showed them that they must respect the rights and freedoms of man. And this is the firmest pillar with political rights. And so the kings had to back off and allow law to rule. Yes, my dear people. Another quotation that helps us understand this point is a quotation which was written by myself. And this is what it states, I quote, "The centralization of authority in the hands of an absolute monarch and not in the universal law of equality for all is the direct opposite of republicanism." So that if you have laws, and these laws count all of us as equal, and these laws have the authority, that is a republican state, that is a republican country. And this is exactly the opposite of the centralization of authority in the hands of a king despot. Yes, my dear people. Furthermore, this beautiful quotation we love, we're giving this quotation to you. It says this, I quote, "This nation has in its keeping the last word in human political institutions, the Republican form of government. So that a Republican form of government is the ultimate government upon a sinful earth. It is the last word in human political institutions, republicanism. And this is the reason why you must celebrate a republic, because you have the ultimate, the protection of rights and freedoms. This is what a republic is all about. And not just only must citizens recognize this, but government must also recognize this. In this quotation, here is what we are told, I quote, "The polity of a republican government is based on the principle of the sovereignty of the people." So when a government has policies, those policies must always be based upon the recognition of the sovereignty of the people. This is what a republic is all about. Another important quotation that helps us in understanding these issues is this quotation. I quote, "It was much urged also that independence involved a landing in republicanism." Now this means once a country becomes independent from a system, from another governmental system, the best form of government that they must have is republicanism. And this is why Trinidad and Tobago gained independence, and from independence they landed into republicanism. Yes, my dear people. I am talking to the director of the Tusian Institute for Religious Liberty, Brother Shannon Bartholomew, and he will be having a display in the public library about republicanism. In this interview, he is going to tell us exactly what is a republic. Brother Shannon.
Okay. A republic is a country that has adopted a republican form of government. Now, it is not, the term republic may not be the name of the country, or may not be the term that is used to call the country, because you have countries that are called republics, for instance, the People's Republic of China, yet still it doesn't have a republican form of government. So a republic is a country that has adopted and implemented the republican form of government, which secures, among other freedoms, liberty of conscience. And of course, liberty of conscience is supported by a variety of sub-freedoms like religious liberty, freedom of thought, freedom of information, freedom to teach and preach, etc., etc. So all these freedoms are critical to the advancement of the country itself. And that is what secures a free society.
Yes, my dear people, I am outside here from our temporary church building, and I want to introduce a few of the brethren to show that in our church we train people well. We want you to know that they also understand what is a republic.
A republic is defined as a government which derives all its powers from the great body of society, not from an inconsiderable proportion, a favored class, or a handful of powerful special interest groups. A republic embodies rule by law and not by majorities or special interest groups. So in other words, a republic is a form of government that embodies rule by law. So it obeys the law and it protects the rights and freedoms of all. And also, a republic is defined as a government which derives all its powers from the great body of society, not from a considerable proportion or favored class. So no family or kings and their ideas must rule society, but society is ruled by law which protects the rights and freedoms of all. So this is a government which is a republican government that protects the rights and freedoms of all and does not oppress minorities because the majorities is against what the minorities believe. All are protected under law in a republic form of government.
A republic is a country that is governed by the laws of God. It is governed or ruled by a republican government that views or appreciates the religious liberty law. It is viewed, or they appreciate the religious liberty law and view each and every one as equal, that the majority may not rule over the minority.
In a country such as ours, Trinidad and Tobago, we as a republic are governed by a constitution that upholds our rights and freedoms, and so it secures us, or it protects us against any policies or leaders that would introduce or try to introduce laws that are anti-rights and freedom. So in a republic nation, all citizens, whether you are a minority of the minority or the majority, are protected with a republic form of governance.
A republic is a form of government that respects the rights and freedoms of its citizens, right? This government understands that the rights and freedom of its citizens is God ordained, right? It's given to them by God, and their role is to protect the rights and freedom of its citizens.
A republic is a type of government that respects the rights and freedom of its citizenry and also establishes the principle of equality under law. Thereby, there will be no oppressive or no tyrannical type of government in a republic. Each individual rights are respected and protected by the government. And such is the American Constitution that guarantees religious liberty and the freedom of conscience under a republic. Your conscience is actually protected according to the constitution of the country. Unlike what you will have in a communist country where the rights are granted and can be taken away by the whims and fancies of the government.
The republic is a form of government that the people elect in a democratic process, but it's a type of government that upholds the rights of men, meaning that it upholds the three fundamental rights that are God ordained to man. First, the right to religious liberty and its enjoyments. Then secondly, the right to life and the right of private property. These rights must be upheld by the majority because it is a democratic process, and the rights of the minority should be protected by this government upholding the rights of men.
Now, this is what the government is supposed to uphold through a nation, giving the people, acknowledging the people's three basic rights. The first right is the right to religious liberty. Religious liberty giving you the freedom to serve God as the creator. The second right is your right to exist, or your right to life. Therefore, no man is supposed to take your life from you because your life is given by God. And the third right is your right to private property. And those are the three rights given to you by God that the government is supposed to hold under a republic.
In people's rights and their freedoms, we have the freedom of thought, the freedom of expression, and the freedom of movement, and the freedom of opinion, the freedom of choice, and meaning we are able, or we have the rights under God to show and express ourselves the way how God will have us to do it. And even in expressions, we don't have the right to, or the freedom to sin.
Republicanism forms a natural part of the doctrine of the rights of man, since it derives its existence and structure from both the rights of God as well as the rights of man. Republicanism is the only form of government that ensures full liberty of conscience to its citizens by legally guaranteeing no establishment of religion by law. Thus, republicanism functions to inform and drive the Protestant spirit against all forms of tyranny and communism.
In our church, we learn these things. We don't only learn about justification, about sanctification, about being sin-free, about the judgment. We also learn about what is a republic. We learn the facts about government. Now, what you can observe in this clip that you're going to see is the fact that a new political party has been formed in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It is called the Democratic Republican Party, and it is by Sister Anissa Batiste I say sister because she's a member of the Tuesday Seventh-day Adventist Church in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the name of this party clearly shows what is a republic. Observe what she said.
I have received a number of calls and requests from persons at home and abroad to start a new political party, and I have decided to heed the call of the people. Today's announcement will be brief and will be followed by subsequent discussions and updates with and to you, the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The name of the organization, that is the political party, shall be the Democratic Republican Party, the DRP. Why this name? It is based on two things. One, a belief in democracy as a method of electing government, where each person who is entitled to vote, votes, and the majority votes, the majority rules. And it is also based on the philosophy of governance called republicanism, which says that in the process of governing, it will ensure respect for the rights and freedoms of all people, not only the rights and freedoms of the majority who elected it, or only the rights and freedoms of some elite minority or special interest group. What is the purpose of the Democratic Republican Party? Its primary purpose shall be to promote democratic Republican principles and policies in order to create a golden age of economic and social prosperity for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
As we celebrate what a republic is, it is important for you to see this beautiful quotation. We love this quotation. This is by a man by the name of David Ramsey. Here's what he tells us. I quote, "They looked up to heaven as the source of their rights and claimed not from the promises of kings, but from the parent of the universe." End of quote. And so this quotation clearly shows us that we are all to look to the parent of the universe, God himself, as the source of our rights. We are not to look from the promises of kings and despots as the source of our rights. If you are celebrating Republic Day, you celebrate this fact, that the source of your rights comes from the parent of the universe and not from the promises of kings.
Does the government work for us or do we work for the government? Is freedom in America a myth or a reality? Tonight, what if we didn't live in a free country? What if the Constitution were written not to limit government but to expand it? What if the Constitution didn't fulfill the promise of the Declaration of Independence but betrayed it? What if the Constitution actually permitted the government to limit and constrict freedom? What if the Bill of Rights was just a piece of paper that the government could avoid whenever it claimed the need to do so? What if the same generation, in some cases the very same people, that drafted the United States Constitution enacted laws that violated it? What if the merchants and bankers who financed the American Revolution bought their way into the new government and got it to enact laws that stifled their competition? What if the Civil War that was fought in the name of freedom actually advanced the cause of tyranny? What if the federal government were the product of 150 years of stealing power and liberty and property from the states and from the people? What if our political elites spent the 20th century importing the socialist ideas of big government statism from Europe? What if our political class was adopting the European political culture from which our founding fathers fought so hard to break free? What if you were required to purchase a product that you didn't need, didn't want, couldn't afford from a company you never heard of, just as a condition of living in the United States? What if the government told you what to put in your body and not to put in your body, and how much of it? What if the government claimed that since it will be paying your medical bills, it can tell you what to eat, when to sleep, and how to live? What if the government tried to cajole and coax and compel you into behaviors and attitudes it considered socially acceptable? What if the government spent your tax money to advertise to you how great the services are that it provides? What if the government kept promising to make you safe, while all the time it was stripping you of your liberties and committing crimes in your name that made you a target of more violence? What if you didn't have a right to every dollar you earned? What if the government decided how much of your earnings it will keep and how much it will let you have? What if the government took money away from you and gave it to its rich banking and corporate friends whose businesses were failing? What if the government thought it knew better than you did how to lead your life and had no problem telling you so? What if the government took credit for every success your own human actions helped to achieve? What if the government told you that only it could build roads, run schools, keep you safe, and collect the trash, and deliver the mail, even though it's never been able to do so efficiently before? What if the government spent nearly twice as much money as it took in? What if it couldn't pass a budget on a timely basis and just funded itself a couple of weeks at a time? What if the government kept borrowing money against the wealth of future generations to pay for wasteful programs today? What if you worked for the government and the government didn't work for you? What if freedom were a myth? What if we don't live in a free country?
Finally, if you want this television program or any other, all you have to do is to call us at 625-0446. 625-0446, and we will send this television program for you and any other thing you ask for. And what you are seeing on the screen here are our various web addresses where you can access material, DVDs and radio programs right here on those sites. So, may God bless you until we meet again in Jesus' holy name. Amen.